I remember when I was a kid, when the next Doctor was announced, there was a lot of press, there was a lot of excitement, and there still is even today. All four of you had that moment, had that point where you went for the job. As Paul just said, he thought it was a joke. Going from Peter onwards, I mean, did you actively try for the role? Did you expect to get it? Were you surprised you even were on the radar?
No, and this is going to sound a bit... I actually didn't have to go for the part. I just got rung up one night and offered it, which was very nice, because I thought I'd been sensible enough to work with John Nathan Turner about 3 years before that in All Creatures Great and Small, and he left to go and produce Doctor Who, and I didn't think any more of it, and he rang me one night out of the blue and said to me, Peter, it's John here, Tom Baker's leaving Doctor Who. I thought, why on earth is he telling me this? And then he said, how would you feel about being the next Doctor? And I think I went into a kind of shock, because I just couldn't really relate to the idea of me being the Doctor at all. Oddly, now, with the series, since the series came back, I seem less out of place than I did at the time. But you know, I grew up on older Doctors, so the idea of me playing the Doctor seemed a bit odd. But then he actually had to offer to take me out for lunch before I realised he was serious. Because on the BBC budget, you know, that's a big expense. And finally, you know, in the end, it sounds daftish, but I knew, you know, the way it works in this business is if you're offered a part and then you turn it down and someone else plays it, you really can't go around saying, I was offered that first. And the idea of being offered it and never being able to tell anyone that I was offered it made me, I think, well, I can't possibly turn it down because I won't be able to tell anyone, so I thought, well, I better do it. It's the most stupid reason in the world to accept the part.
No, but that's a good reason, that's a good reason.
That was really the truth. So that's how I ended up doing it, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Now, Colin, you actually
I actually turned it down before he did it. So when they offered it to me again 3 years later, I thought, well, they're never going to go away.
Yeah,
I'm going to take it.
They offered it to me when I was 4. Before I didn't learn again.
Is it true, Colin, that you were offered the part of the curator as well?
Oh, was it? Well, it was true.
Yes!
Yeah, we were all offered the curator.
You all offered the curator?
Yes.
You turned it down. I told
We
you
all turned it down. Solidarity. Now, my story is I got a phone call from my agent in the summer of 1895. Saying the BBC had rung up to offer me a part of a character called Maxill in Doctor Who. And I said, oh, what a shame. What a shame. That means I'll never play the Doctor. He said, why? And I said, well, because I know they never cast the Doctor from somebody who's been in Doctor Who before. And my agent said, well, they're not going to offer it to you, are they? So my agent, I said, no, I suppose you're right. So I played Maxill, and as a result of playing Maxill,
and shooting me.
and shooting Peter, and we did a run through, and the producer, because we used to rehearse it like a play, and you do a run through of the whole story for the producer a couple of days before we go in the studio. John Nathan Turner came up to me afterwards and said, do you remember what this programme's called? I said, yeah, Doctor Who. Oh, it's not called Maxill then? And I said, no, it's called Doctor Who. He said, you're playing it as if it's called Maxill. And I said, well, in our own lives, each one of you sitting out there is the lead actor in your life. And so is Maxill. Maxill doesn't give a hoot for the... Yes, I know, but you have to show that all the time. So I agreed to compromise my high standards of acting.
Take it down a bit.
Yes.
Is this why you were the humblest Doctor when you played it?
But I had a good laugh with John Nathan Turner, and I got on very well with him. And bless his heart, 18 months later, when Peter decided enough was enough, he rang me up. Asked me to come and see him, and that was that.
I heard on the news that they were looking for a new Doctor after Tom Baker. Was it Tom? No, I think it was Colin. No, it was when you left, Peter. And you who left, so I said to my agent, there's a job going at the BBC. And he phoned them up and they said, sorry, we've cast it. And they'd cast you. I think that's it. And then, 3 years later or 2 years later, it was on the news that you were leaving. So I phoned up my agent again and said, there's a job, it's going at the BBC. And this time, they got me in to see John Nathan Turner. Luckily enough, a friend of mine who was a producer-director, did Vision On and Tis Was and various other things that I was involved with, he phoned up John Nathan Turner immediately after my agent. The next call was that from him, Clive Doig, and he said, I think you should see Sylvester McCoy, I think he'd make a good doctor. John Nathan Turner said, yeah, you were the same agency, what's going on here? And he said, no. And John, I was kind of believed in synchronicity and stuff like that. And that ping a light went on in his head, and he thought, ooh, I'll go and see this guy because he's on at the National. And he came along and he came back and he said, I've found my new doctor. I discovered this years later, but anyway, that's how I got the job. That and the hat.
You'd have loved all this, would you love this, John? To see it like this now, I'm sorry John's not around to see it. At first he might have been a bit depressed that it wasn't his anymore, but I think he would have so enjoyed the resurgence of the programme you loved.
Oh yeah, he would have, very much so.
Yeah.
And he would have wallowed in the wonder of all this.
Even brighter Hawaiian shirts.
And Paul, one more time, so they phoned you up and you thought they were joking? So, I mean, was it an audition process, or did you just...
It was. I'd been in, the year before, I had three brothers, all actors, and we'd been in this BBC drama together, the one and only time we ever worked together. And unbeknownst to me, Phil Siegel, who would be in charge of producing this so-called movie that we made in '96, saw it. And anyway, it was a mid-19th century thing. I played this priest, I had long hair and this frock coat, and it was obviously his idea of a doctor. He got in touch. His problem was he couldn't tell me and my brother Mark apart.
It should have been Mark.
So we should have been Mark, yeah. So we both auditioned.
No.
Yes. You can see the auditions online.
Oh my God.
Yeah, bear me out. It's true, isn't it?
Has he forgiven you?
We've never talked about it.
When
No.
Pete, when we had a few drinks one night, you know, they were doing the Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann film. He let rip. He said, "Oh, I got them all mixed up. I don't know which one's which. I'm not sure if this is the right one." But anyway, it turned out it was.
Even the day I turned up in Canada to shoot it, he wasn't convinced that I was there.